had concluded its national convention, had its primaries, and has come out with its flag bearer in the person of Atiku Abubakar, former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's a done deal now. And what Atiku is doing, like, one would expect, is to, show a little bit of magnanimity in victory. He's going round now to meet, with these contenders too, to say that we all should work for the party. And he's getting assurances that it will be well. With some Wike, who came second, has assured him that he will be with the party. He will not abandon the party in the middle of the ocean. And so PDP set, ready with the person of Atiku Abubakar, former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let's come to the other party, the ruling party, and that's talking about the APC. All set, and we all know what had happened to the, some people who said the goal had been shifted by INEC at a time that it was the same INEC that it would not move from what it had said. But again, we see pressure coming from INEC, and the INEC had to shift its goal post. And so the APC is coming up with its own convention, 6th and 7th, and so we're expecting that. And that again will throw up a flag bearer of the party. But let's talk to the key person here, the number one citizen of the country, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that's talking about Muhammadu Buhari. Muhammadu Buhari had appealed to governors and the National Working Committee of the APC to allow him this time, in picking a successor. Allow him to pick a successor. And so, what does this tell about who would be the flag bearer? Recall again that the governors, he had said that the governors had been given free hand to choose their successor. And so we're seeing what is coming up from different parts of the country, in states, that the governors had been allowed to pick their candidates to succeed them. Let's put an example here in Kaduna State, where Malam Nassir El-Rufai had come to say that Ubasani could be a successor, and they've gone to the primaries with it. And Ubasani, of course, will be the flag bearer of the governor of governorship candidate of Kaduna State. And so Buhari is asking, the president is asking, allow me to do that. And he's saying, allow me to do that because we should see it as one that he wants victory and confidence before he vacates in 2023. He also said that the interest and cohesion and strong leadership brand to achieve bigger elections is what he wants. And again, he says that he would want to a successor that would continue with the strong points of the party when he came on board. All of these he had asked are thrown before the National Working Committee and of course the governors, chief executive governors of the states, and that's what he wants now. But that the Buhari wants this. Now, what is this telling? Is it principles of democracy, or is it another internal, democracy? And again, he has said that in other countries or climes of the world that this, had been in practice, and so Nigeria should not be an exception. And so, we go back to stronger democracies in the world have done that, kept to leadership by, doing it, internally. And so he wants that to happen with the APC. My guest this morning on the program, Yusuf Goje, a public affairs analyst, would be sharing thoughts with me on why Buhari wants to be allowed to pick a successor, just as we've had the, governors of the state doing that. Yusuf Goje, good morning and glad to have you on the show.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes, okay. All right. Should the president or governors decide who should succeed them in office, and members of the parties for the candidates' emergence, or is it the electorate at the general elections? Who should be allowed to do this? The president wants it done. The governors have had it. And so we're asking the question about democracy and what it is all about.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Toyin, for having me this morning. I think this topic directly speaks to the APC as a political party. But beyond that, it questions the legitimacy of the kind of democracy that we practice in Nigeria. We have a number of people that have argued that we are yet to begin to practice democracy in Nigeria. What we have is civilian rule, where we have people with the military mindset overseeing the affairs of a civil system where civilians are now, so to say, in charge. And as we have seen over the years, the space that democracy is supposed to provide for inclusive and participatory engagement by more citizens has been narrowing over time, where we have an elite conspiracy, an elite capture of power, and elites sit down to determine where power goes, how power is used, and to whose benefit. Now that in itself defeats the core principles upon which democracy is being built, as it were. So the action of the president, it is an internal party affair, and by virtue of the Electoral Act, each political party has the right to conduct their primaries either directly, indirectly, or via consensus. And APC as a party seems to have continued to toe the path of consensus. Well, consensus in itself is not a bad idea, considering the peculiarities of a country like Nigeria. But however, the mode of which this consensus are taking are anti-democratic in nature, because in a country of 200 million, where we have a situation where people, not more than 10, 20, 50 at most, sit down to determine the fate of 200 million people without any form of bottom-top consultation to get the views of people in an evidence-based manner to show that, yes, as a party, we carried out a poll or a form of survey. We showed that, yes, the president should decide who his successor should be or not. But now, what we are seeing is that the president is trying to usurp the powers of members of his party from the 74 local governments. When you add that to the world, you now find out that one man wants to take decision on behalf of that number. Does it mean that this one man has monopoly of knowledge? Does it mean that this one man already has the omnipresence power to know what the issues of the people are in the nooks and crannies of this country, and who fits the description of the person they feel can be in the right position to solve those problems? And the essence of democracy itself, as we have said, is inclusion and participation. The feeling that I am part of the process that led to the emergence of a leader itself builds up my confidence in my country, builds my trust in my country, and also increases the level of my patriotism. But if one man wants to hold the monopoly of that power to determine who should lead me, then I think probably we should just go back to the military era, where decisions are just taken in the comfort of Aso Rock, and everybody is expected to toe the line. So, as I have said, consensus in itself is not a bad idea, but how it is being done is where the challenge lies. It isn't being a unilateral command and obey process where the president will just say this is the person and everybody will just toe the lines. We are not even talking about the governors, because the governors are themselves already imposing candidates, silencing dissenting voices in their state. So they are no better than the president. And the president has every right to also ask them that if you will do it in your state, why shouldn't I do it in Nigeria. But both the president and the governors, to my mind, are all wrong in the way they arrived. Not all, some of them that impose their candidates. Yes, if truly your candidate that you're supporting is popular, if it's acceptable to the people, subject him to the referendum of votes, either within your party in the form of a primary. And if he wins, then good. You know that you're supporting a candidate that is acceptable by at least the majority. But when you impose, the only thing you are saying is that you have an interest and you believe this is the person that will protect your interest to the detriment of the wider common interest of the people, as it were. So I think the president needs to have a rethink. Even if he has the mind to do such kind of thing, I don't think it's something that should have been made public, because these are the issues that continue to encourage voter apathy. Because when the average voter sees that this kind of level of command and control is what is happening at the top, he loses faith in the electoral process, because it means that if the president will want to impose a candidate on his party, what makes you think he would not do anything to impose that same candidate on the nation? And these are critical questions that I think a leader shouldn't allow his followers to be asking based on his body language, because if he does it to his party, then to do it to Nigerians would not be a challenge that is there. So as for I'm not worried about the governors, because most of them and the president are doing the same thing in terms of wanting to impose candidates. But for the ordinary Nigerian, for the survival and sustenance of our democracy, this is a very, very bad precedent that should not be encouraged by especially a president that is self-professing to now be a Democrat. Then we should subject whoever he is in support of to the normal processes of widespread consultation across all the wards or even the polling units of the state. If parties can do voter their membership registration in polling units, why not, when taking critical decisions like this, they would not go back and hold more of like a referendum or a poll at the polling unit level to ask, who do you want to represent our party in the forthcoming election and what have you? So yes, if they can't do it.
But Yusuf, the situation you've painted is like we may be at a path, or where we say that we just could be in between the ocean and the deep blue sea, and so the choices we make now generally will be accepted that these were not choices that Nigerians would have made on themselves, but again, a choice that has been thrown to us. I want to bring in the voter here now. The PDP had concluded its convention. It has thrown up, its flag bearer. We expect too that the APC in some few days would do the same too. But here, the two choices that are, maybe presented to us, I'm talking about strong parties, of course, other parties will be there, and where we make choices. Again, can Nigerians at this critical point, make good judgment of who, to lead them, to lead them on, come 2023? Can Nigerians, with their votes, if people ask for, INEC to give us a free, fair, and credible election, but can the voters again really say, because of the arrangement that we've seen with the INEC and of course all the adjustments that have been made about the electoral law, can this, the choices we make this time again be choices that Nigerians would have made on themselves?
Yes, there's a lot of political illiteracy, if I would use that word, not in an insultive way, but our political consciousness has not allowed us to really make those kind of informed choices. And when people say the big parties, I tend to argue because when you look at the statistics, these big parties might not even be as popular as we usually want to project them to be. And the 2019 election statistics is clear for every one of us. The two political parties the PDP and APC were only able to pull 27 million votes out of the out of the 82 million registered eligible voters in 2019. So 27 million votes is still less than the number of people that did not go out to vote in the last election. So if the number of people that did not go out to vote in the last election decide to go to any of the smaller parties and vote there, they will definitely defeat the PDP and APC joined together. So, but over time, we have boxed ourselves into believing that the only place that we can get leadership is these two big parties. Now we have limited our scope, our search for leadership away from these parties. And that is why most of the big parties, the two big parties, money continues to play a critical role in who emerges, not necessarily the qualification or quality of leadership that particular candidate from these parties is bringing on board. While you go to the smaller parties, you see more credible, capacitated leaders that that there's these ones, when given the opportunity, because they don't even have the money to buy votes, they will largely depend on selling their ideas, their capacity, their exposure and experience to Nigerians and others. But be that as we may, we have already been indoctrinated into believing that outside the PDP and APC, there are no options. Those other parties don't have structures and what have you. The question is who are the structure? It is human beings. So if majority of people decide to adopt any of the other parties, they will be the ones to be the structures at the grassroots level that we are talking about. They will be the ones to mobilize the votes. They will be the ones to vote. They will be the ones to defend their votes and ensure that the majority ends up winning the election. So I think the major thing that is lacking is around political education for the electorate. So the only form of education that we get is the propaganda that the political parties or the politicians put out there for us to consume. Then most people beyond that, they don't have any form of political education or consciousness to decide to say, yes, at this point, we have tested these big guys. Can we look at other alternatives? But if the big parties bring credible candidates and it is the ones we should support, it is good to either choose between the two of them. But we shouldn't say that our conversation should only restrict, we should be restricted to what is happening in PDP and APC. Yes, we know that is where the money is, that is where the big guys are, but that does not also mean that we should not look at alternatives, because that is the beauty of democracy, that we should have variety and we should be able to make informed choices in determining who should rule this country. And again, we have seen the quality of leadership that both PDP and APC has to offer, and we are now looking at what should other political parties be offering that is different from what these parties are offering. They have been offering us over the past 22 years or so of our democracy. If they have what is better, we go for them. If we analyze and see that it's still APC and PDP that is the best bet for us, that is what it is. But as long as we restrict ourselves, there is no competition among these political parties, then they will continue to impose candidates on us, and we don't have option but to restrict our voting pattern to these two parties. But by the time you open up our minds and say, no, this power really belongs to the people. Because when you look at the definition of democracy, say government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If you remove the people out of the equation, it is no longer democracy. Even if you have the institutions of democracy in place, once there's no mechanism for people to participate in electing their leaders, in determining how their leaders should lead them, and in holding their leaders accountable based on the social contracts that they have, then we can't say that we are practicing democracy. So that is my own thinking around this. If we are really looking at credibility for 2023, and 2023 is a special year, I tell people that if you pay attention to the statistics around what is happening in this country, around insecurity, unemployment, poverty, human capital development, other health indicators, and all of that, illiteracy and all of that, you know that this country is sitting on a time bomb. And the quality of leaders that we are able to bring in 2023 should be leaders that we consciously decide that these are the people that will take us out of the quagmire that we find ourselves. They have what it takes to do that, and these are leaders that we can support them as citizens, because we also citizens have a role to play. But if we limit ourselves to these two parties, we don't have a choice. At the end of the day, we will scream and shout. The president will still impose who he wants to impose and all of that. But again, another danger, I think, going back to the issue of the president imposing a candidate, is that the moment you have inclusion in the ruling party, then it overheats the politics. Because the ruling party has control over the institutions, control over the resources, and once they are fighting, once there is infighting, it raises more tension in the system as a whole, because internally they will be sabotaging themselves, and that will have rippling effects on the socio-economic development of the country. Within this short period that campaigning is happening, we already know where we are already in terms of insecurity and what have you. So that is one implication that I think the president should not see, because from reports we are getting, we are seeing governors again beginning to become divided along geopolitical zone as a result of the request he made towards them, while the PDP election has changed the dynamic. The APC is now saying if you don't bring power to the north, then it means that the PDP will take over and all of that, while the southern governors are saying that they want to continue with what the zoning arrangement that they have, the power should go back to the south. And this already will overheat the polity, and it won't augur well for all of us as the voters, and even them, the leaders, at the end of the day.
Yeah, okay, Yusuf, quickly, before we, close this segment, just like they say in that balance, that what is good for the goose should also be good for the gander, and so where would the governors make what voices or what can they put in here when the president decides that he wants this to run? Give it to him that this is my last time and I want to be given the opportunity to pick my successor. Now let's also look at it, juxtaposing what President Muhammadu Buhari's current position is with his popular stand of I am for everybody and I am for nobody. Could the president have just decided to be for somebody, as against the maxim of democracies, which gives room for the people to make their choices? And of course, also in doing that, have we seen some people would say one form of authority in a democracy has been stamped into democracy, and so you just mentioned that the governors may just be working against the president if they do not like the choice of the president, but they have no option because he gave them room to do that. And so for everybody, I'm for everybody and I am for nobody. How can we hold on to that now with the integrity of the president?
Well, that statement, if there's one thing that the president has done over the past 8 years, is also to make Nigerians not trust his words. And I say that from the fact that the majority of the promises he made in 2014 in the run-up to the 2015 election, he has failed to meet a lot of them. Some he has denied making these statements, but some that he has held on to, he has not met up with that. Even in terms of insecurity, he had promised to lead from the front, but unfortunately he has spent more time in Aso Rock, more time outside the country than going to where these insecurity issues are, at even points that he had commanded as the chief commander, his security heads to mobilize and go and face this challenge of insecurity. A lot of the times we've seen situations where they ignore that command and what have you. So him being for everybody or I've even forgotten the statement. It has not reflected in largely his actions, but he has said it more in words. But that is not to say that he has not achieved anything in some areas. We must give it to him. But if you put it on a scale and you do a comparative analysis of where we are in terms of poverty, in terms of illiteracy, in terms of unemployment, and a lot of other insecurity, a lot of these indices compared to 2014 and now, you tell me that, yes, you agree that he has not kept most of his promises that he has made. So I think the president has an interest, and that interest, I know in one of the interviews that was held with one of the TV stations, he said that he had somebody he is supporting, but he would not reveal who that person is, because if he does, probably he said he will be killed or something, and all of that. So he has his own interest. And one thing that what he is doing is going contrary to, again, another promise he made, is that he promised us that if there's one area that he will want to leave better before leaving office, is our electoral system. And our electoral system also involves internal party democracy. Because if you don't manage internal party democracy, it has a way of spilling over to affecting the larger political, economic situation of the country. So in totality, I think that in his action, that statement is not reflective, because if it's reflective, if it's for everybody, then let him either bring everybody on the table, let them have an open democratic way of arriving at a consensus candidate. If that is not possible, it should either result to indirect primaries or direct primaries and decide the party's candidate at the end of the day. My worry is not what they are doing in their party, because I'm not a politician. My worry is the spillover effect, because already President Buhari is not President Buhari in 2019. President Buhari in 2019 had a second-term ambition. He was coming back second time. So governors deferred to him at that level, gave him that respect. The President Buhari in 2014 is not the President Buhari in 2022. The Buhari in 2014 had a massive support base. But that support base in 2022 has largely been depleted because of failure to fulfill promises. Most of the people that voted for the president are the worst hit by insecurity, are the worst hit by poverty, are the worst hit by all forms of underdevelopment that you can talk about. So it means that his support base, the muscle, the political capital that he brought in 2014, yes, he might have some part of it, but it has been largely depleted. Most of his allies that brought him to power in 2014 are no longer with him in 2022. So I can assure you that the moment he insists, you begin to see these same governors that pretended to worship him turn their backs on him, because they don't need him again. Yes, some might need the little respect and the vote that he can garner, which has depleted, like I have said. Then most of them are sure that they don't need him. After all, before 2015 elections, with the support base that he had, he could not win the election till people like former Governor Tinubu, Senator Kwankwaso, Senator Korota, who is now locked up in EFCC, and all of that, came together to support him to become president. These people might no longer be there. So he is not the political force that we used to know him to be. The anti-corruption posture that he stood for, all of a sudden we are seeing that the Accountant General is being alleged to have siphoned, is it 80 billion? We are seeing another 90 billion allegation coming up and all of that. So he is not the same force that will make these governors shake or fear him anymore that he has seen. The assumption of the solution to Nigerian problems that he brought on board has largely been depleted. So people know him now, know his capacity, and have seen what he has to offer and all of that. So the challenge here is that you might end up seeing an implosion in the ruling party because for most part of the government, the different cabals in the party have been fighting each other rather than focusing on providing governance to Nigeria as a whole and all of that.
Okay.
So that is the implication. Yeah.
All right. Yusuf, I'll just call for a break here. And just before we go on that break, just to announce again to listeners too and viewers too that we're streaming live on Facebook on Invicta 98.9, and so please join us on this conversation through this channel of our Facebook Invicta 98.9. We'll go for a commercial break. When we come back, we'll take another look at what is coming out in this political arrangement as we're having it now.
We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Are you serious? Invicta FM.
We are the station that all the stations listen to. Invicta 98.9 FM.
Welcome back. The program Perspectives this morning, and well, attention is on President Muhammadu Buhari. Asking for support, from governors and the All Progressive Congress, national executives to allow him pick his successor. How this goes with tenets of democracy. We're discussing that with our guest this morning on the program, Yusuf Goje, a public affairs analyst. His thoughts, we're getting them this morning. But Yusuf, yes, still coming back. Just before we get our lines opened, INEC's extension of the primary timeline by 6 days. Now, that's not coming down well with some public affairs analysts, and of course, even those in other parties, and they're saying that the thought that INEC itself, was an independent party, but some would say that it had gone down to favor some parties with this extension, and they're even asking about the independence of INEC as an independent body. And all of this is coming because it shifted the goalpost, and that's not coming down well. Some say by this action, INEC's independence cannot, be trusted. Your take here?
Okay. I did not really get the question, but I believe you are talking about the independence of INEC in the face of the postponement of the deadline for primaries.
For primaries, yes.
Yeah. Okay. The issue is it's all about the electorate for me, because no matter who you put as the INEC chairman, number one, you have to look at the process that brought him or her into occupying that office, and even in terms of renewing the person's tenure, in as much as the National Assembly is involved, at the end of the day, he has to be first nominated and what have you. Then that is on one part. Then on the second part is the electoral body is supposed to be a neutral institution. And being neutral does not mean it is immune to the pressures by the political actors. Political actors deploy different means of strategies to manipulate institutions and to manipulate the electorate in order to have political advantage or score political points. And whether we like it or not, INEC will continue to be a target for the political actors. And the political actors can continue to hoodwink INEC to a point that they have no option but to take certain decisions that favors them. You recall, I think, was it in 2015 or 2019, where the electoral body said they were ready to contest for election, to conduct election, but the security agencies then came out and brought out certain security reports and what have you, and at the end of the day, the election had to be postponed. And a lot of people now interpreted that to mean that it was also because the incumbent wanted some political advantage, and they decided to use the security card, play the security card to get the umpire to make certain moves. So that is, you can't take away those two critical factors from INEC. In terms of the independence of INEC, they have a limit to how they can be independent, because at the end of the day, they will still have to go and also defend and lobby for the monies that they will use to prosecute elections and what have you. And all of that exposes them to different influences and that. So it's not necessarily about the individual itself, but the processes is what we're looking out for. So why I talked earlier about the vigilance is that once the electorates are vigilant and follow through with the process from A to Z, they will be able to create the force that would ensure that at any point in time that the electoral umpire decides to fall for the pressures of the political actors, the electorates are also there to put pressure on the institution to be able to stand firm and in the middle and all of that. So as regards the postponement of the primaries deadline, well, it is in the realm of speculation, but again, INEC did not do well to douse the suspicion that is being aroused currently, because I recall that IPAC, the body, I think it's IPAC, the body that is like an assemblage of all political parties in Nigeria, discussed and requested that the deadline should be extended. And the INEC chairman categorically said that it would not be shifted. And a lot of political parties went ahead to continue planning with the short deadline and what have you. So if you put that, you juxtapose it with the happenings in the ruling party, because till now the ruling party has been postponing its primary elections, and the deadline from all evidence shows that it is not in favor of the ruling party more compared to the other political parties, because probably their strategy is more of reactionary, looking at what the PDP is doing in terms of who emerges, to determine the strategy they will adopt and how they produce or who they produce as their presidential candidate at the end of the day. So this decision shows to have favored the ruling party at a time that INEC on its own told all political parties some few weeks back that shift in date is not possible. So INEC has created the atmosphere for people to question its independence. But we cannot say that is conclusively the reason, but they have given us one or two indicators to say that, yes, probably it is because, as it is widely stated, the president called and demanded that the date should be extended. If that is true, then we live in very, very, very dangerous times. It means it is a threat to the survival of our democracy in 2023. Because if at this point INEC is already being influenced, allegedly, by the ruling party, then it means that we might not end up seeing free and fair elections. But the chairman, to a large extent, has also been one, opinions differ, but his integrity has, to a large extent, not been too compromised or too questioned at that. So we believe that, one, he needs to protect his integrity. Two, we, the electorate, need to be more vigilant, because from all indications, 2023 election might be probably going back to the do or die politics we used to know, because this is the first time that an opposition party that has won an election is finishing its first 8-year tenure. So both the ruling and the main opposition will be doing a fight to finish to ensure that they hold on to power on the part of the incumbent government, and the opposition captures power. So INEC will be under undue pressure. Different influences will be coming, because for some of us that have tracked political electoral process, you know that the main rigging that happens is institutional. So the party that is able to manipulate institutions, that is the umpire, the security agencies and other institutions, has a more political advantage compared to the other political parties. So the rigging that happens with the electorate, or the people that snatch boxes and all of that, is not the real rigging that happens. It's the institutional rigging. But again, like I have said, INEC has brought in a lot of innovations. Technology is going to play a critical role in our elections.
Okay,
so we
yes.
might also see some level of integrity in the voting process.
All right, Yusuf, let's just come down, get, the audience to be part of this conversation. We are on Facebook, streaming live, and Invicta 98.9. Drop your comments, and so we can, pass them on to Yusuf. And again, calls will be taken on these numbers: 081 40,000 989, 081 40,000 989, or 070 87 800 989, 070 87 800 989. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, hello.
Yes.
Good morning, my Oga Yusuf Goje. Praise the name.
All right, Kure.
Yes, he has analyzed very well. If I may ask this question, if you have done well in your office, Oloy, let me set an example from you. Why is it must you choose somebody that will succeed you? There's no two ways about that. We, the electoral, we are the people that will determine who will rule us come another 4 or 8 years come. So they shouldn't be disturbing ourselves. They are safe. Because some of their followers keep on telling us that it's PDP that been doing that. What is playing out now today? So they shouldn't worry. Buhari can shift the post. The INEC can shift the post. Will determine who will rule us come 2023.
Okay,
they shouldn't be worried themselves there. Because I keep on saying this thing, Oloy. Some people will not believe what they will see on that day. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kuri. All right. Stay with your calls. Hello, good morning.
Hello, Oloy.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to our guests.
Yes.
I am Job International.
Okay, Job International.
I appreciate your guest by all what you said, and that is the truth. But what I'm trying to observe here is that the coming of APC to this country has spelled doom to this country.
Your own opinion here. That's your opinion.
Because
here.
What I'm saying is that how can somebody use association against the population of 206 million Nigerians? That is not fair to us. And you can see the reason why our country is unfolding on many problems, because it's self-centered by what it's doing. And sincerely, whatever they are going to do, we Nigerians, we are waiting. PDP has finished on. We'll make our own choice, and we should actually already what Buhari is trying to do is our own prayer and casting APC, and they will do what happened in Zamfara. Thank you and God bless.
Okay, Job International. We'll take one more call and then come back to our guest. Hello. Okay. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Toyin.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. My name is Musa Bala. I'm calling from Kaduna.
Yes, Mr. Bala.
Yes, I want to disagree with your guest when he says that no matter what, we have to restrict ourselves to two major political parties. No, that is not.
Please come again with that. What you're saying. You disagree with him for?
He made assertion that we have no choice than to restrict ourselves to the two major political parties.
Okay.
I say no. These are the two parties that we always complain. We complain that they are all cargos. We complain that they are all politicians. We complain that they are corrupt. And the system, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the system allow us to go for an alternative candidate. So if truly Nigerians want change and they don't want this thing to continue, let us mobilize ourselves, get a neutral candidate in another different party and elect him so that we will not continue complaining. And on the issue of President Muhammadu Buhari saying that he's going to name somebody that is succeeding, that does not mean that he's going to force Nigerians must elect that person. That's not so. The president don't have the right to impose any leader on Nigerians. The person that will be elected by a majority of Nigerians should be the next president. He's only exercising his own right, just the way Obasanjo picked up Yar'Adua as his successor. Then Nigerians agree with Yar'Adua and elected him. If Buhari today pick anybody he so wish to be his successor, that is the first stage. The second stage is for Nigeria to see that if that person is person that they feel can be a good president, then they elect him. Buhari don't have history of enforcing any person on any part of this country, and he will never ever enforce the next president on Nigeria. So it's left for Nigeria.
The flag bearer, I hope you are not mixing it. The flag bearer coming from the party. Okay, all right. That's Musa Bala. Yes, Morpheus, if you could just go to a Facebook page and let's get comments coming out there.
Okay, from Facebook we have a few messages. The first one is from Augustine Shamang. He says, a glorious new month to all Nigerians and a good morning to you, Mr. Toyin, and the analyst, Professor Goje, my brother. Nigerians are still learning the concept of democracy. That's the reason some people that are privileged to be what they are imposing candidature on people. So regrettable to my opinion. Until we humbly approach realities to get things done effectively, we won't get the results we need. APC, to my opinion, has not gotten it right since its inception. No wonder deplorable nature of infrastructure to the knowledge of most Nigerians, except with some psychopaths that sing praises to the present crop of leaders. May God really secure our damaging predicament. Okay. Joshua Babalola is just saying good morning. All right. Ifeanyi Okori, same thing, sending his greetings. Jonathan Aloma, Mr. Toyin Alabi, good morning to you and your guest, Mr. Yusuf. I am JS Aloma. The president has really put democracy in jeopardy by saying that the APC governors should allow him choose his successor. This is bad for democracy. Look at the 100 million naira paid by the APC presidential candidate. The president has told the world that he is for everybody, not for somebody. But the reverse is the case now. All right. Isa Abubakar was also saying good morning. Thank you. Silvanus Chukwu saying, Mr. Toyin Alabi and the Invicta family, while this government was supposedly focused on governance, we knew how terrible that things were at it. Imagine how bad it will be now, and that it is all the 2023 general elections and a successor. Okay, trying to make sense of that. Chima Nnachi says, good morning, Mr. Toyin. If the president continued to impose his candidate on APC that's against the wish of the governors, I am seeing what happened to PDP in 2015 will repeat itself. Ayuba Nathan is saying good morning and happy new month. And John Echeta Chukunonso, what the head of state wants to do is against his legacies. This is to show that Nigeria's nature for yielding to his selfish interest. He does not have the right to impose any candidate on us. Even though he does, will he or she be acceptable to all regions? Haba. Last message here, Daniel Bala says, please, I want to ask a question. Please, the way things are going with this politics in our nation today, what is the hope of we the youth? Is there any hope for a Nigerian youth or a Nigerian child? Daniel from Baigi Villa. That's the much messages we have.
Right, appreciating you all from our Facebook page. And coming back to our guest now, Yusuf Goje, your final thoughts here. But again, let me just quickly, with some of the callers, Musa Bala saying that, yes, that we should not be concentrating on the strong parties, the APC and the ruling parties, that we have other, much younger parties that could come up with the kind of leaders that we want. I'm sure you stressed on that. You talked about that. And of course, Job International saying that the choice of the ruling party has not helped us in any way. Queries along the line that the choices now will be for the electorate to make the right, choices for them. But again, Yusuf Goje, your final thoughts here about asking and demanding for this request to be the one to choose his successor. And of course, this successor would be the flag bearer of the party. And so Nigerians now would make their choices from the parties, that were, bringing up their presidential candidates. For the APC, would this make or mar, in the forthcoming election, that this choice that was presented may, have its consequences on, maintaining status quo or going differently?
All right. I think at this point in our democratic journey, what we should be looking out for is deepening our democracy. Like I have said earlier, the problem is not that consensus should be done. The problem is one man trying to impose a candidate on everybody in his party and wants everybody to fall in line, when we know that politics is about interest and diversity. And in that interest and in diversity, that is where you look for and find consensus, not in imposition of candidates. Like also I have said, my worry is not what the party does internally. That is their problem. The biggest challenge is the spillover effect we might end up having that would affect the political economic situation of this country as we approach the 2023 elections. Don't forget, the president imposed the party chairman of the All Progressive Party, and we watched interviews where some people said they accepted because they respected the president and what have you, not because there was a consensus. Now again, when that wound is yet to heal, the president is coming up again to say he wants to appoint or anoint the party's candidate. So, and at a point that he does not have the political capital to really make that kind of statement, because he's no longer contesting. Most of them don't see him to have the kind of political value he used to have. So them resorting to antagonizing such a move is high. And when that happens in a party that is holding on, that is in power, then you know that the governance, because let's also not forget that from this May to May 29 next year is 1 year. And in this 1 year, governance is still supposed to be happening. So wherever there is political tension that might lead to instability in the polity, it will affect governance as it were, and it will worsen our insecurity, our unemployment rate, our poverty rate, and all other indicators that already we are confronting presently. So that is my worry. If the party would do their thing and finish peacefully, and it will not have a rippling effect on the larger population, let them do their internal party thing, let them agree on what they want to agree. But we don't see that happening. If you do an in-depth political economic analysis, you see that the position of the president would likely lead to implosion in his party, which would spill over to the larger system, which would not go well for us. But for citizens, I think this is the time we have to stand by what democracy is, which is government of the people, by the people, and for the people, to ensure that a few people don't sit down in one location and continue to determine our fate. and our future as a people. We are in a crossroads as a country, and we must stand and ensure that only the best that has the capacity, capability, credibility, competence, commitment, and compassion to bring us out of the very difficult situations that we find ourselves into. So the responsibility is now we the people. We are the sovereign. Power belongs to us. This is the time to use the power to determine and influence our
Yusuf
future.
Goje, we thank you for coming on the program with us this morning. Thank you for
Thank
time.
you for having me.
And that would just be about the size of the program, perspectives this morning. Yusuf Goje, my guest, has been talking about the request or the demand of President Muhammadu Buhari for, the governors and, of course, to allow him to choose his successor. How this will go well with the party as it prepares for its for its primaries, its convention too. We're yet to see. I'd like to thank my colleague, Mafia Sidoko, for connecting me with the people this morning. Wisdom, thank you for putting us in the pictures. Perspectives will return tomorrow. Have a good day.